You guys were yelling at each other before we came on
Oh,
air,
about the
and I want you guys to go back yelling at each other. Okay, now
Well,
that we're on air.
well-
So what? I guess let's first, Wes, you make the case if you think this is the case for why you think this election and this choice between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump is so important.
Well, listen, here's the thing. I'm not completely on the other side of Jimmy on this. For me, the whole reason I supported Sanders was that he called for a World War II scale mobilization to adapt to as well as turn back climate change, something that we were able to get forced into the Democratic Party platform. And for me, I want her to come out and talk about it. And she's hidden from it ever since Sanders dropped out of the race.
She hasn't mentioned climate change.
And if they want to wonder why millennials aren't lining up
Yes!
to vote, it's probably because you're perfectly okay to have them killed rather than, because listen, if you're like 20 years old right now and the government doesn't act quickly to solve this, you're not going to live out the end of your life and die of natural causes. And I think a lot of people understand that. And she has not addressed those issues. However, and this is getting into what we were talking about earlier, I don't think she's going to immediately dismantle constitutional protections such as freedom of speech, right to a trial, and other issues, and encourage racial violence to the same extent that Trump is. I've lived in countries that have gone through civil conflict before, and I will tell you that the idea people have in their head that Trump will be so bad we'll have a revolution is simply wrong. Most people, despite what we all feel inside of ourselves, are fairly cowardly. And if somebody comes to your house with an armband and they beat up your children in front of you and they say, if you speak out again, we're going to come back and kill you, generally they don't speak out again. And I know people who have immigrated to this country from other parts of the world, they understand that. Most Americans don't understand that because we've been living in a kind of fantasy land meme bubble of Soma for the last 40 years with television and distractions and everything else. And I had put this piece tweeted out earlier yesterday by Arun Gupta, and it basically, a lot of people seem to forget that after the U.S. fights major wars, there's a period of intense racial and political violence that usually follows it. If you go back to the end of the Civil War, you had the terrorism of the KKK versus African Americans in the South, as well as the massacres of the Plain Indians. If you go to the end of World War I, you had massacres of blacks and Chicanos, with thousands dead in 1919 and 1920, as well as massacres in the labor movement in Washington State. And they tried to do it again after World War II with racial problems in the South and such as Mississippi, but thank God for Eisenhower, he deployed, the 82nd Airborne to put a stop to it. And what people don't get is how possible violence is, real political violence in the society. And once it happens, you can't put it back together again. And so when Trump says, I'm going to eliminate the EPA and there's not going to be any controls at all on the environment, okay, that's great. We can be pissed off at him. But if we go 4 years pumping more shit into the environment, there is nothing we can do to save ourselves and our children from apocalypse, essentially.
And my rebut to that is that you are, I think, making a slight misinterpretation of the situation, which is that Trump is not the problem. He's a symptom of the problem. And we keep doing what we've always done. We're going to get another Trump, and the next Trump might actually be competent, like Ted Cruz, because Donald Trump is an incompetent, and he will have extra scrutiny, and he won't be able to get any of the horrible stuff done that people think he. This is my theory, and we've been doing this thing. We've been doing this, and they've been putting up a worse candidate and a worse candidate. And this is we're living in what they call inverted totalitarianism right now. We live in an oligarchy right now. Not
arguing that
so
point.
To keep voting for more oligarchy, I'm afraid of what the next Trump's going to look like. And I'd rather vote for Jill Stein and try to build up a real lefty party in this country so we can counter. Hey, if she was polling at 5 or 10%, maybe Hillary Clinton would be trying to be more of a lefty instead of trying to get Jeb Bush voters, which is what suppresses the vote. Half the country still doesn't vote, West. Half the country. And did you know that things are worse than you think they are? Do you know 1 in 4 kids in America lives in poverty,
Yes.
not poor.
Yes.
In poverty. You know,
Yes.
half the country now is considered poor.
Yes.
Half. In
Yes.
the richest goddamn country. Wall Street's setting records, profits, so are corporations, and you want us to vote for more of the same. People ain't gonna do it, which is why she's fucking losing.
Here's the
Wes,
thing.
that's
I don't
why.
want you to vote for more of the same. With the climate mobilization, we're going to fucking force her to nationalize it and mobilize the country. And if we try and do that under Trump, we'll be killed. So there's a difference to me. It's the ability to move somebody to our position, somebody who respects law and who respects freedom of speech and isn't going to put us in a fucking labor camp. And that my brother-in-law, who is dark-skinned and lives in Phoenix, isn't going to be pulled out of his car by a bunch of fucking vigilantes in 4 months and shot in the fucking head. It matters, dude. It really fucking matters. And for people who think Donald Trump isn't dangerous, just listen to what the guy says. This is a guy trying out for a job interview. And that's when people are supposed to be on their best behavior. Now imagine what he's going to be like as president after he's already said, I'm not going to pay back the debt. We shouldn't have so much freedom of speech. We should be beating up opponents. What do you think is going to happen when he's elected? What do you think is going to happen to us when he's elected if we speak out against him?
So, I agree that when you say that it matters, I think you're implying that I don't think it matters. I think it matters a whole bunch, which is why I'm super serious about it and thinking about it 24 hours a day. And I, just like you, I think kind of agree with my position. I also am sympathetic to your position. This isn't easy.
No, and I'm sympathetic to yours.
Right.
This is a
I went to a Trump
very,
rally.
very hard
I went to a Trump
decision
rally.
for me because I do not support what she stands for. I do not support the president's system.
Here's my also another here. If you want to talk fear, I'll talk fear. So in 2 years, right now they think the Senate might flip right to Democrats, which is a great thing in a sense. But because of the way she's campaigning selfishly, it probably won't, right? So then we're stuck with Republican Congress, Senate, and Congress at least for the next 4 to 6 to 8, 10 years, right? And then we're going to get a Republican in 4 years. Nobody's going to reelect her. So long term, it's horrible. In 2 years, I mean, she's not going to get anything done anyway except right-wing stuff. Again, we've got to break the fever of neoliberalism because that's what creates Trump. And I know it's scary, and I'm not saying it's not scary. I'm saying that I'm betting he's an incompetent, and I'm betting that the American people will rise up.
I'm willing to bet you every mass murdering dictator in history is a fucking incompetent. That's why they kill people. That's why they have absolute control, because they're incompetent. Look at any general that's run a country. The country falls apart because generals don't know how to fucking fix the roads or get the electricity to go in. Look at Hitler, Mao, Stalin. Millions of people dead because they're incompetent. That's a fundamental thing about tyrants.
Yeah, it's not the bug, it's the feature. So I am in a lot of ways more afraid of his incompetence than I am of his bad intent, because when he goes and accidentally starts a war with North Korea, oh my God, you just accidentally killed 285,000 South Koreans. What have you done, you idiot, right? So now when Hillary Clinton starts a war, she means to start a war. So she's not going to bungle into one. She might start one anyway.
No, she could absolutely bungle in. She's bungled into 2 of them as Secretary of fucking State.
Well, I hear you on that too, but not in the way that Trump would. So Hillary Clinton is not going to be like, oh, Kim Jong-un's unstable. I didn't know that. He sent me a mean tweet, so I started bombing him.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
All right, so now having said all that, I think the compromise, even though it seems like the two opinions are so stark, and I actually have great sympathy for both sides, I'm going to argue that the compromise is easy. So we fight Trump now. So there's the rise of the angry white man, his last gasp for air, not white people, but the angry white man of the Mad Men era, the ones that liked the racism and the sexism and the old society and the way things were, and they're rising up in their fury now because they think this is their last shot at a demographic victory. Next time around, they have almost no chance as the demographics of the country continue to shift to more in favor of the Democrats. So this is their last gasp. Going, like, maybe we can end this, because if we continue on democracy, we're screwed. Think about that for a second. all those right-wingers, in their gut, they know if we continue down this Democratic path, we are screwed. They, the right wing, and the way things used to be done when they owned everything and they controlled everything, that's done for. So God help us if they get in power that one last time. Okay, then we turn around and we hopefully finish off the angry white man, madman era nonsense this time. Then next election, we go finish off the establishment. There, Jimmy, we're not going to have any compromise, okay? Then I'm going to be 1,000% on your side. And I'm not going to have a conversation about because we're going to primary the hell out of her. We're not going to wait for a general election. You know how they said don't primary Obama? Hell no. Hell no. I'm not going to let a Republican beat Hillary Clinton. We're going to beat Hillary Clinton. And we're going to primary her, and primaries don't work. Yeah, except that Lyndon Johnson ran for his life and didn't run for a second term because he was getting primaried, right? And primaries do work. That's why the establishment always tells you not to primary people, because they're the ones getting primaried. So we start fighting Hillary Clinton on day one. If we're lucky, we push her in the right direction. And as someone just told me a little while ago, she likes to be in front of a parade. You throw the parade, she'll jump in front of it.
Yep.
That's the lucky best case scenario. Worst case scenario is she doesn't. Okay? Great, then we beat her. Okay, and there's no compromise. We fight, and we take the establishment down the next time. Because, Jimmy, you're right, they put us in a terrible spot. We all agree. I mean, in a way, it's a great last trick of the establishment, but they're playing with fire. The trick is, well, what are you going to vote for? Mussolini? Right?
Well,
it's true, because now it's not working anymore if you throw a Romney out there or a McCain out there. Now we've got to make it worse, because you hate the establishment even more today than you did 4 years ago or 8 years ago. So now we've got to give you Trump so you go in this direction. But then they're out of their bag of tricks, okay? So, but last thing, guys, before the debate starts. Look, the answer, and this is where maybe we really disagree, Jimmy, but the answer isn't like a third party rises like a phoenix out of the ashes and somehow in this system gets from 3% to 38% or 51%. The answer is an amendment so that you get money out of politics. So we fix the system. We fix the infrastructure that creates all the terrible candidates in the first place. If you fix the system, then you might actually get decent Democratic candidates. Hell, you might even get decent Republican candidates because they would be responsive to you and not the donors. That's the real revolution. You do that revolution, you'll get a lot of great candidates. You don't do that revolution, you're going to try to struggle up that hill of a third party maybe 7 elections from now. I don't mind the third party. Fix the system, then let's have 18 parties. But you've got to get the money out. If you don't do that, we're all lost anyway.